Hello everyone, hope everybody is well. So my name's Amar Bilas. I am the ISM practice lead, which basically means anything to do with infrastructure security and modern workplace falls under my responsibility in the UK. This Lunch and Learn's all about how we save the customer quite a lot of money. They were spending quite a bit with Azure. But yeah, it's the main point. Hopefully, you can walk away with some actionable bits that can come in and reduce your bill for what you're spending with Azure. I think the big thing I definitely want to mention is everything in the public cloud. It's not just Microsoft. Everything that you use on the platform is chargeable. You just kind of forget because it's so easy to get access to whatever you need. If you're thinking of a new project, you need to store some information, you need to check a security validation for example, what your server's looking like. There's always a charge in it. And dependent on who has access, sometimes they forget. And the big thing is you do get an unexpected bill every now and again, and it's probably happened to quite a few people on the call. I know it's definitely happened to me in the past. I've worked with many customers who've got unexpected bills on different platforms, but yeah, there's always a cost for anything you use. I think the big one, what we're seeing right now, especially with the Copilot piece, Copilot is also generating a lot of data. You have data, you store that in Azure, you get charged for it. So it's kind of a gotcha. You can use all these really clever tools and these tools that really help your business, but you're paying for it. Now, the couple of things that I'll definitely say with this one is I've had a few heart attack moments. I've definitely had a customer, and there's one funny story that I always like to tell people when we're talking about cost saving. So I once got a phone call when I was in Borneo from a panicked customer. They ended up receiving a £25,000 bill on the Azure platform. And basically, what happened was they had a bunch of call data recordings, and you have call it unlimited storage. The customer thought, right, I'll just dump it in Azure. Easy thing, easy decision. What the customer forgot about was you get charged for it. So at the end of the month, he got a phone call. So I got a phone call. I was in Borneo at the time looking at orangutans. My phone rang, and I have a panic customer going, "Please, can you help? I've just received a £25,000 bill. I don't know what's happened." They had to answer to the CFO, going, "Well, why was a bunch of spending? How can we reduce it?" So myself and my team had to come in. So Dr. Amar and his team. So I ended up getting a boat from where we were all the way back into the hotel, pulling my laptop out, jumping on a call with some of my team, and going in and doing a deep dive of what's happening. And like I mentioned earlier on, the customer stored terabytes of data, and it was sat in some blob storage, and they were getting charged per hour of every gig being stored per hour, and that bill came through. Now, my team had to go in, and we had to figure out how do we find out some cost optimizations. We managed to kind of save the day by sticking in some actions. It was changing how the customer stored data, and just looking at where did the uploads are coming from, how they're uploading it, how, for example, the data is being passed around on the platform. So that was a good one. I always find it funny. I was, like I said, I was on holiday. I had to get a boat all the way back and jump on. But the big one is we want to make sure that we don't end up in that situation. So if somebody's holiday is getting disturbed, it's unexpected. And secondly, the stress of having an unexpected bill as well. It's definitely not fun. And yeah, definitely, I can say the person who had that bill wasn't happy about it at the start, but we managed to resolve it. Now, going back onto our original topic, it was all about how to save, how we saved a customer 240k per annum. So this customer that we're talking about was spending about £1 million per year in Azure, so quite a big figure. and they just wanted to figure out how do we reduce that spend. So they've engaged with HSO. We've leveraged our super clever people to go into the environment and start doing discovery on the. Now, there's a couple of points that we go through. There's governance, automation, and modernization, and optimize the solutions in there. Now, we spent a good couple of days looking at the environment, how the customers are spending it, how they built out that environment. I think the big thing what we spotted was data moving around in the platform, jumping over different networks. That's always a big cost, and it's always a gotcha with that platform. So if you have two networks and you're moving a whole bunch of data over, it's a gotcha. It's a good way of getting some call it double figure costs per day in Azure. So if you add that up in the month, it starts growing. So we jumped in and we started having a look. So the first one was obviously the data is moving around. So we recommended re-architecting that environment, going right. How do we optimize the networking? How do we optimize data flowing around that environment? We then started looking at, well, this is great. We can put all the actions in, but how do we stop it from happening next time? So there's a feature in Azure for budgets. We've gone in and started setting up budgets, going, how do we control that cost? And I think that's a big one as well. What we always find, it's going back to my very early comment of people forget you get charged for everything. So having a budget in, and as soon as we hit, for example, £100, £1,000, whatever that figure is, setting alerts off, getting emails, getting people jumping onto that platform. So that's a really good preventative action in there. We also saw that there was data in there. Again, I'm falling back on the data piece. For every gigabyte stored in Azure, you get charged for it. So having good lifecycle management policies. So, for example, if you don't have access, say if you've not accessed a certain file or certain data for a number of months, why have you got that in the most expensive storage account? So moving that into cheaper storage really helped that customer, and that found us quite a big saving as well. We set up Azure policies. So again, coming in and having good governance around your platform. You can have simple things of just setting up Azure policies where you can't spin up really expensive virtual machines. And that's always a gotcha. I've had so many conversations with developers who have gone in and going, oh, actually, I just want to test something on a really fast box. And they've gone in and just opened the most powerful virtual machine they've got access to, span it up, tested the environment, what they wanted to, and just forgot about it. Again, you're paying for it because it's switched on, you're using resources, and it's only at the end of the month you figure that out. So again, having a strong Azure policy set up where you only have access to, for example, a certain budget, certain virtual machine sizes, and certain people can only spin up virtual machines and asking for approval. That's just the basic thing that we go in and have a look at. Another big one, what we found on that environment, so the customer's using a virtual desktop environment, just modernizing that and using some of the new features built into Azure, which is actually a PaaS service. So you don't have to spin up a whole bunch of VMs and all controllers and all the other bits that come with spinning up a virtual desktop environment. It can all be spun up via PaaS platform in Azure. That absolutely reduced the customer's spend. So we've got a figure about 60K there. That was massive for the customer just for the RDS environment, and just having something simple as just modernizing and using some of the new features in Azure, 60K saving, just saved them massive amounts. Networking is always one that we always find as well. So just having a look at how your network connections are, how you're transmitting data out of Azure. Again, egress charges in Azure can be quite eye-watering as soon as you get up to the terabytes of transmitting data out. Just going in there and finding out what's happening. How can we optimize the networking? Is the data being transmitted back onto on-prem? Can we move that into Azure, or can we optimize how that data is coming out? Do you need to bring in terabytes? Can we get away with gigabytes? So that's something just to keep in mind as well. So really have a look at your bill, have a look at where your networking is coming and how much you're spending. There's always ways of saving on networking. And Microsoft do have products and options to come in for unlimited networking charges out of Azure. Definitely do some cost analysis on there and have a look. So the customer saved about 10K on there. We've also got 50K for software licensing. So software licensing, especially with Microsoft, can be a bit of a dark art. Having access to, for example, a really good software licensing advisor, it's worth its weight in gold. It's almost like having a good accountant. If you've ever been self-employed and had to go to an accountant to reduce your tax, they'll ask you certain questions. It's the same as what a licensing expert can do. So the big one to remember is, again, Microsoft do have call it benefits of using certain licensing under certain conditions. So the customer who had a bunch of SQL servers in this environment, what we figured out is if we modernize the SQL environment, you can have a 1 to 4 core. So you can purchase 1 core SQL server, and that means you can get 4 in Azure. So leveraging some of the benefits what come with your licensing piece, you can get massive amounts of saving. And the deeper you go into your licensing optimization piece, the more money you can save. So altogether, just piling all those bits on, that saved the customer about 240K. Now, what happened with all this? So once the HSO team finished and what we were looking at, we figured out, well, we should come up with a top 5 piece with this. Now, what I've done is we did do a webinar a couple of weeks ago about the top 5 cost saving methods for Azure. These top 5 bits still apply. We can share this deck out, come take it away. There's also an offer, what we'll mention towards the end of going these top 5 pieces. But definitely use these as takeaways to see if you can implement some of these features right now. Talk to your technical guys, talk to your licensing providers, see what's available for you. So I'll fly through these. So the first one's control and monitor costs. I mentioned it earlier. Azure does have a cost management blade. Just setting up and reviewing this blade on a daily basis and having up your cost alerts, that's going to save you some nightmares. So again, you won't be expecting phone calls when you're on holidays, saying I've got an unexpected bill, because you know what's happening in that environment. It's a really good insight of how the spending is. Some of the options what you have for the billing trends for this, you can go in very granular of per day, per hour, how much is a resource costing me. So have a play about and see what that's doing. The other piece I want to mention with the cost management side, you can actually export this data out. So if you do have Power BI skills, definitely leverage them. Go in there, set up a Power BI dashboard, have it on a secondary screen so you're constantly looking at it and it's constantly refreshing. That's going to save you some stress of having it. If you don't have any Power BI skills, HSO, this is a shameless plug, HSO does have a Power BI team who can help you with that as well. Azure Advisor is always one. Have a look at Azure Advisor. It gives you some really good, useful recommendations in there. Jump in, have a look, see where your savings are. For example, the screenshot on the screen shows that this customer could potentially save £5,000 a year just by shutting down or resizing the virtual machine. So jump in, have a look, take action on these bits. Very useful for all of our uses in Azure. Leverage some automation in there. And so we have a bunch of automation what you have built into Azure. Obviously, automating and resizing virtual machines. A really good example is if you're only processing and you need CPU and power in the evening, why not boost up your virtual machine in the evening, and then once it's finished, go down to a lower size. Really simple way, easy to implement as well, and it only takes a shutdown, which is roughly about 20-30 seconds of a drop of a virtual machine, and then bring it back. Second big one, this is kind of a given what everybody should have a look at. If you're not using that resource, switch it off. Again, you use everything in, you pay for everything in Azure. Power it off. Just very simple. You can go in and just turn things off, delete it. Very easy way to save some money. Big one as well, Copilot. Can't go without a webinar without talking about Copilot. Azure now has a Copilot feature built in. just ask it a question. Just go in and go, right, what's happening in my environment? Where can I save? Copilot does give some useful information as well. Plus, you're using AI, so you can go off and brag to your friends that you are using AI for looking after your environment. The third one, having a commitment. So committing with Microsoft's a really easy way of saving money. If you commit with a number of years, you can have saving plans, reserved instance, or even commitment with your software as well. Just have a look at it, see what you can do. You can save up to about 72% for a 3-year reserve for compute. So if you know that workload's not going to move for the next few years, use that reserved instance. Again, we see a lot of customers who are just using pay-as-you-go. It's probably the more expensive way of using the platform. Having that reserved instance really reduces that cost. And it applies to virtual machine storage, databases, and even SQL environments as well. So everybody should have an element of that in their Azure environment. SQL licensing is always a big one. So if you're ever looking at your licensing, you'll have a look at what the biggest figure is. It's normally always your SQL licensing. So go in, have a look at what the benefits you can have for moving into Azure and using your SQL licensing. So Microsoft has something called hybrid benefits in Azure. So like I mentioned before, you can have a 1-to-4 virtual CPU exchange for every single SQL license that you license. Go in and make sure you're leveraging that. You might spend a bit of time, but 99% when we work with customers, the investment that you make on modernizing or moving to a SQL PaaS environment really pays off after a few months as well. So leverage that, work with your IT providers, with your licensing providers, figure out exactly what you're entitled to and deploy it. Really quick and easy way of saving some money on that one. So hybrid benefits is just an example. If you manage to use every little bit of hybrid benefits plus reserved instance, you can look at some massive amounts of saving. The one what Microsoft has on the website, they're saying about a 93% saving on the environment. Just have a look. We have seen in many occasions of massive savings close to 90%. Use them. Just definitely get it deployed in your environment and leverage some of those benefits. Let's move on to optimizing and right sizing. So this is a big one. You really need to have a mentality of, instead of just deploying resources and you want to have a buffer of virtual machine CPU that you're using, use it the other way around. So you want to leverage as much as you can. So if you have a virtual machine, instead of having 80% free on your CPU, swap it around so you've got 20% free left on your virtual machine. Same with storage, make sure you're not over provisioning. So use the right sizing tools built into Azure. Now, right sizing, what we've seen, especially in the customer that we managed to save 240K with and other customers, was all based around virtual machines, storage, networking costs, like I mentioned in the example. But the big one is also around the DR and backup solutions that the customer is using as well. So go in, have a look. Is your data retention policy set? If you're saving, if you're using data retention for too long and you don't need it, again, you're paying for it. So using one of these 4 items to just go in and have a look at what you're paying really is going to show you some savings around there. And then the last one, what I'll say is HSO does have a cost optimization workshop, and that's what the customer leverage for themselves. So the customer who managed to save 240K all came from a cost optimization workshop where they leveraged all the experience that we've seen. So we see this on a regular occasion of how to save customers, and all we're doing is bringing that knowledge in and applying it to a workshop. So get in touch with somebody at HSO. We have a special deal on what Debbie's going to send a link out shortly for. So anybody that joined this webinar gets a free 30-minute cost optimization workshop. So the best way to do that is either reach out to Debbie or send me a message on LinkedIn or use the feedback form. That's going to get sent over after this to get in touch. It's going to cost you nothing to have a 30-minute conversation with myself or one of my team. we'll give you some real good insights. The best way of actually leveraging that 30 minutes is if you actually do a screen share and just show us what's in your environment, where we can quickly spot what you're doing, and we can give you some real actionable bits of advice that you can go in and implement as well. If you want to go in deeper, you can purchase some more time from HSO, and we can come in and do a bit more of a deep dive. But a free 30-minute conversation, you should hopefully save you some money on there as well. So they're kind of the top bits that I'm looking at. I'm happy to discuss with anybody with any questions that you may have. Just reach out to me. I'm more than happy to just jump on that. I won't charge you for asking a couple of questions. Now, we're coming to the end. Hopefully, that's a big brain dump of everything what's in my mind. If you've got any questions, just drop them into this, and I'll hand back into Debbie.